enter the Dragon. It's from OCS Korea. And the situation here is, this is the 26th of November turn, and the UN has already taken their half of the turn. So what we're going to do here is finish off the half of the turn with the Chinese going. And we're just going to step through the phases here. First phase of a player turn is the aircraft refit. And if you can see up north in China here, I have some MiGs sitting on some of the air bases up north here. The other thing is, if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to interrupt and ask.
Yeah, just jump right in. We appreciate it. That's what we're here for.
And for the aircraft, generally once you use an aircraft to do a mission, they'll go underneath the airfield, like I just marked the one here. And what you'd have to do in your aircraft refit phase is pay to push those guys back to active. But starting the game, they all start active. During my aircraft refit, go ahead.
Sorry, Jim. I was just going to say, if you want to notice, I got a couple of aircraft carriers with aircraft, one on each side of the peninsula. Where did I put the other one? Blends in so good, I can't. Yeah, I know it blends in so good, I couldn't even see it. And my guys are all activated too.
Okay, so after the refit phase, I go to the reinforcement phase, and this is where you'd roll for variable supply, for variable reinforcements, and any of your scheduled reinforcements. In this scenario, all we really get is a fixed amount of supply every turn. So for the Chinese, they get 4 SP per turn, so I'm going to bring those in. Oops. Put 2 up here. Now, can you guys see me moving this stuff around all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to put 2 right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and roll for my variable reinforcements. I'm sorry, variable replacements.
Korea charts on the controls, right?
Yeah, so if you go up to the Korea charts button, you open that up under the communist REPL supply table, you'll see I'm going to be rolling on that top table there. And this is just stuff that allows me to rebuild units that get damaged during the game. 6, so that's 1 PAX, which is 1 personnel replacement. So what I'm going to do is take that, he can go into any of my supply centers, and I'm going to put him right with the SP that I brought in. Now we get to the actual stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and start my movement phase, which is the next phase out. And we're going to start along the west coast here. We got this 149th Infantry Division. He's got a movement factor of 3, so what I'm going to do is move him right up to there. And since he's moving along the road there, it's only 1/2 per hex. This guy, and I'm going to move him 1, 1.5, 2.5. I'm going to take this guy, move him 1, 2, and 3. Now one of the other things you can do in OCS is when you move one of these big units, this 196 guy here, I'm going to get ready to move him. If you look at that yellow 3, that's the number of steps he has. And during the movement phase, you can take and create breakdown units from those guys. I'm going to create a breakdown unit there. And when you do that, you take a step away from the big division. That is because I want that regiment to. Oops.
Yeah, if any of you guys don't know,
I have there.
The 12 is the combat strength, the 3 is the movement strength on those divisions, and the 2 is the action rating, which is very important.
So I'm going to go ahead and move him down 1, 2, and 3.
You want to explain to them why you left the breakdown?
Yeah, I left the breakdown there to garrison the supply I have there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my headquarter unit here. He has a movement factor of 0. If I flip him to the move mode, he has a movement factor of 4. And I'm going to jump him on top of there as well.
First number on the headquarters is their throw range, which is how far they can
throw their supply. Take this 167th Division up here, and I'm going to flip him over to the move mode. We're going to move him 4 along the road. 2, 3, and for the last one up here, 4. I'm going to finish up my movement there. I'm going to move over to the center here, and I get this 125th Division that's sitting here. And what he's going to do is he's going to attack this breakdown unit in an overrun. So the first thing I have to do is pay for supply. So when you're paying for supply in OCS, it costs 1 token per step. And this guy has 3 steps, and it's costing me basically what we call 3T. So in order to do that, I'm going to have this headquarters here. It's going to throw the supply to that guy. He's sitting on a stack here. So he's going to reduce this to... Oops. So from there he's paid his 3T that he needs to attack, and he's going to attack Bill's unit there.
Hey, now I need to spend 1 T for defense. Hey, all paid for.
So now that he's paid for his thing, next this is where the action ratings come in. Right now I'm going to attack at 12 to 3, and it's his defense strength, so we're looking at 4 to 1. But I have a 4 action rating, and Bill has a 2 action rating. And what we do in this case is we roll for surprise, what they call surprise, and this may give us defensive or offensive shifts depending on how it turns out. And since I have a 4 Bill's 2, I get to add 2 to the roll. And then an overrun attack, if I roll 9 or more, I gain surprise. So we're going to go ahead and roll here.
5 or less, I'll get surprised, but that's pretty unlikely.
So I end up with a 7. So there's no surprise here, so we're going to go with a straight 4 to 1 attack. Now if we look at the terrain here, he's in what's considered low hills. If you go to the Korea charts and look at the terrain, the TEM chart, you'll see that low hills is classified as close for combat. And why that makes a difference is if you look at the OCS 4.0 charts, look at the combat table, you'll notice there's different terrain types on the top here. I can't point them out to you, but there's an open close, very close, and extra close. So it makes a difference in what type of terrain you're attacking into. So in this case I'm attacking 4 to 1 in close. And again, because of the action ratings, I'll get to add 2 to that roll. So I rolled the possible lowest thing you can roll.
Wow, am I lucky.
Yeah, so it ends up being a 4. And if you look at the chart, that corresponds to an AL101 DO1. So an AL1 means I lose a step. So he's going to...
O1s for both sides are options.
So go ahead and I'm going to mark this guy. And he's in hex A2603. I just saw the suggestion from Justin there. So my guy has to lose a step, and then I have to take an option. And my option is I can lose a step or I can retreat. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and retreat 1 hex.
Now, if Jim had taken his option, he could have took another loss, and that would have forced me to take my... Then I would have had to take my option, which would have been either to lose...
It for that overrun attack. That cost his entire movement. So here I'm just going to move some units around just to get him in position for the combat phase. I'm going to mark the 120th Division, which is in hex 2007, with a reserve marker, and move him up 1 hex. And when you put a unit in reserve, it can move up to a quarter of its movement phase in the movement. And it can always move 1 hex, so we're just going to plop them right there for now. The rest of these guys I think I'm pretty much just going to let sit for now. So we're going to move up toward the chosen reservoir. Right now, since it's late November, all of the rivers and stuff are actually water. They'll freeze in December, which means I'll be able to move over them. But for now, Oops.
Dark brown hexes are rough, correct?
The dark brown are mountain. The mountain hex, unless you're going along a trail or something, you can only move one hex.
Right.
Moving stuff through the mountains and through the rough, you have to pay attention to your supply here. Trace supply in particular, but we'll get to that when we take
when I was
guys
first
along
learning
this trail.
When I was first learning OCS, I had a lot of trouble figuring out trace for whatever reason.
These two units up near 2817, I'm going to flip them both to movement mode, just to get a little extra out of them.
Watched a few divisions disappear because they're out of.
And now the supply I brought in earlier in hex 2320, I'm going to load onto the trucks that are up there and move them into position. Now the truck, the 1 signifies the number of SPs or RE equivalents it can carry, and the 45 is its movement factor. In order to load a vehicle, a transport vehicle, it costs 10% of its movement factors. So what I'll do is I'll load this first truck up, which will cost it 5. Oops. Move this down to the headquarters, the Army headquarters down here. So along a road, costs 1/2 movement per hex. So up to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then to unload again, it's 1/10 of the 10% of your movement factors. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We're going to load the next SP onto it for 25. 29, 30, another 5 to unload, 35, 37, 38, 39. I'm going to try to leave my trucks parked up there most of the time because that's where the supply is coming in. We had another 2 SPs that we moved over to this location, which is hex 712. And in this scenario, the Chinese get a rail cap of 3, which means they can move 3 SPs over their rail network. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 SPs and rail them down to here. So I used 2 of my 3 rail factors, but I'm not going to use any more until I'm done. That covers the movement phase. I'm done moving stuff for now. So the next phase we do is supply, and this is where it gets tricky because this is the trace supply stuff. And
technically, the next phase would be the air phase, but you don't really have any air, so.
Yeah, during your movement, it builds right at the end of the movement phase is where you would conduct any air barrages that you might have. And as I explained earlier, these MiGs up here, while I have them, they're restricted to doing patrol zone and interception stuff only. So basically I can't have them go on missions, so they're just going to sit up there until Bill tries to do something with his guys. So after the move, we'll go ahead and do trace supply. And the way trace supply works is if you click on the globe on the top, it'll clear out some of the, well, clear off all the counters. And if you look at hexes like 207, and 712, you notice there's a little like dump there that signifies that's a supply source from the North Koreans and the Chinese. And what you have to be able to do is run your trace along your rail lines up to a point where your units can then trace back to that certain point and basically get their supply. The other neat thing is your headquarters can throw supply from certain points too. So if we take an example here, this 80th Division here that I'm moving back and forth, his supply would come from this headquarter here who can throw supply 5 ahead. And he's able to get supply because he's sitting on the end of a rail line here that goes back to a supply source in China. So if we look at all the units that I have out here, it's easy for me to tell that they're all on tray supply. Does anybody have any questions about any of the units in particular or anything that I said? Because I know I'm not explaining it 100%
Yeah,
terrific,
I'd like to hear some questions.
Actually, I had the question that I had was dialing it back some, and that was the step loss that you took to break a unit down so that you could garrison a space.
Yeah.
Two things, because I don't actually have a copy of this one handy. Are there generic step downs or reduced step units, or is it, there is a specific second step? Is it just a flip, or is there yet another set of counters? And then the other reason, or the other question was, what was the advantage of garrisoning that supply point that early in the game when you've got a fairly well-established front?
The reason to garrison is just to be safe. It may have been overkill on my part, it may not have been, but generally you don't want to leave supply dumps by themselves for any length of time at all. Because in theory, all Bill would have to do is...
I can just have walked this guy right up and do it. There's essentially no zones of control.
Okay, that's the part that I was missing. No zones of control.
Yeah, so he can move directly right up there.
The zones of control will cut your trace supply and throwing supplies. They're effective for supplies, but they won't stop the...
Gotcha, I understand. So thank you for that.
Yeah, now for the other part of your question, this is the...
Kind of a key thing in OCS is to always keep headquarters, supply dumps, air bases and stuff, if they're anywhere near the front lines, or really not fun when your opponent breaks through your line and exploits a bunch of...
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, now for the other part of your question, the number of steps a unit has is determined by that little yellow number on some of these divisional counters. So the counters don't flip to reduce in strength, they have this generic step loss counter here. Which you just stick that underneath the unit, yeah. And the breakdown units are just given in the game, and they need to match certain aspects of the counter they're breaking off from, but generally have plenty of them.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions on the trace supply or the supply points or anything yet? When I was first learning, it sounded simple, but it sounded simple, but in practice, it was kind of hard to figure.
If we have no questions on that, we'll go on to the next phase. After the supply phase is your opponent's reaction phase. So I'll let Bill go ahead and handle his reaction here.
I just had to message that guy that tried to call me on Skype and tell him I was... Yeah, it's my reaction phase now. And normally in a reaction phase, I can move my reserves and I could move my air units, but the weather conditions at the start of this scenario are no air turn. The weather is bad, so I can't use... I can move my reserves. Am I cutting in and out, is what Kevin says? Anybody having trouble hearing me?
You're dropping the end of your sentences.
Yeah, if you're using push to talk, you let go
I'm
at
not.
some point. Okay, and then if that's the case, you may want to move the microphone just a hair closer to your mouth then. Because it drops when you pause for 2 seconds.
Okay, can you hear me now? Cool. Okay, okay, it's my reaction phase, and I'm gonna what I got available to move. In my reaction phase, I can remove my reserves half their movement points. Road. He has 1.5 movement points that he can use, but the road hexes are a half a movement point, so he's going to move. Debating. Spend an
out a bit there,
SP.
Bill.
Am I still cutting out? Oh, I don't know what else I can do about it. I'm going to spend an SP. I'm going to draw back to Pyongyang from my headquarters that's in B1935. He's going to draw back here and take a SP, and I'm going to fuel that headquarters up. Place a fueled marker there, and that means he can fuel all the independent units, not the divisional ones. All the independent units that need fuel, he can fuel. Okay, I think that's it for my reserve movement. Let me check over on the other. Okay, Jim.
Okay. So now Bill has finished his reaction phase. We go into the combat phase, and the combat phase is split into two parts. You have your actual combat, which comes second, but initially...
Jim, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jumping the gun. I just want to attack stuff.
So I may fire some barrages too. Yeah, I'm going to fire some barrages, artillery barrages here. Barrage on A1905 cost me 3T. Roll from the headquarters here at 1935, but he's drawing back to grab those supplies from Pyongyang, and then he's tossing them forward to the artillery. And close terrain. Not going to be any. There's going to be one modifier to the left, so I'm going to switch from the 12 to 16 column down to the 8 to 11 column, and that's on the barrage table under the 4.0.
You're hitting 1905.
Yes, A1905 I'm hitting.
Yeah, that's open.
That is open, isn't it? So I'm getting confused by the colors. And we just played this. We just played this game like a month ago, didn't we, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm attacking on the 12 to 16. I'm rolling 2d6. Standing, Jim. Okay, my artillery missed, so we've both been doing pretty good as far as missing here, haven't we? Okay, that's all I'm going to do, Jim.
Okay.
Might have done a little more if we were actually... Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so we're going to do the Chinese combat phase. Now, the combat phase is split into two parts. You have your artillery barrages and then your combat. So I'm going to go ahead and start by doing an artillery barrage from hex 1604. Combine that with the other hex name. You guys should be seeing that I'm moving my artillery units up top here. I'm going to combine those two units, and the number in the yellow is the barrage strength. So I'm going to have 22 total barrage strength. And 22 barrage strength, if you look at the barrage table, cost me 3T. So I'm going to have this guy here throw the supply to those guys. It has a 7, and I'm going to reduce that to 6 and a token.
Supply dump for your guys.
Excuse me?
Healthy supply dump.
Yeah, I got Chinese start with a fairly decent supply. So right, if we look at the barrage table, I'm on the 17 to 24 column. There's going to be two shifts here. If you click on the globe, you'll see that Bill's sitting in low hills, which is the green color. And the low hills is classified again as close terrain. So there's a shift on the artillery barrage for that, so it goes down to 12 to 16. Now Bill's unit there is a single regiment, so there's another shift for that, since it a fairly lightly populated hex. So I go all the way down to the 8 to 11 column on the barrage table. So we can go ahead and take that roll.
Ouch.
Oh, there's a good roll. So that roll is a 1/2 on the table, and what that means is there's a 50% chance that Bill's going to lose a step from that guy. So on a roll of 4 to 6 on a single die, he'll lose a step. So I'll let him go ahead and roll that.
Roll a d6, Jim?
Yeah, go ahead and roll a d6.
Oh, I roll it. That's right. I'm dead.
Yeah, so that wipes out that unit. So generally your
Place him
artillery
over
will
there.
score those kind of hits for you, but this one
It's
worked
actually
out.
fairly rare, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, especially from an 8 barrage. So that unit's dead because it's a single step unit. And then I'm going to look to see if I have any other barrages around here. Okay, we're going to go just north of the Chosen Reservoir here. This is at Hex 3412. And underneath that headquarters unit here, I have 2 artillery units for a total of 18 strength. We're going to bomb the 7th. Let me move this. Oops. Regiment of the 7th Infantry Division under there that we're going to barrage. So we got to pay the cost. The cost, again, this goes to the 17 to 24 table on the barrage. It's going to cost me 3T. And I'm actually going to have this headquarter up north throw the 3T down to those guys. So we're now paid up, and we're going to look and see Bill is sitting in the mountainous terrain. So again, if we look at our Korea charts here on the TM, we'll see that mountain is very close. So very close gives column shift in his favor down to 12 to 16, and again he's a single regiment, which is another shift. So again we're rolling on the 8 to 11, and I roll the 5, which is no effect.
That's better.
Is there one of the charts? Does one of these sets of charts have a list of the phases somewhere? I think I'm missing it.
Check the air ops phase has the sequence of play, if that's what you mean.
Yep, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so that was a barrage, and let's see if I have any other barrages here. And we're going to do one more.
I don't think you need to do any more barrages, Jim.
Got these 2 guys here in 2404 and 2305.
Bob has joined us. Hi.
We're going to go ahead and barrage this unit here. So it's 22, so it's going to be on the same column as before, 17 to 24. It's going to cost me 3T. So we'll take it out of this guy here. 2. We're sitting in
Firing
close
with both of
terrain
those
there,
guns,
so it's gonna be
right?
yeah. So it's going to be the same thing as before. We're going to get 2. Actually, here we're only going to get 2 shifts, because this 3-step unit has taken 2 losses. So he's basically a single regiment in size. So again, we're on the 8 to 11, and swing and a miss. So that is the end of the barrage phase. So now we'll go ahead and do just straight attacks. So we're just going to start in the west and work our way across here. First attack is going to be on this regiment here.
Okay, if you guys will notice, he can't trace supply to anyone. He can't get any supplies thrown to him. So he's going to use his internal find the marker here.
Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack with the 149th and the 148th. And on attacking, you pay 1T per step. And these guys have 6 steps between them, so it's going to cost me 1.5 SP. And what they're going to do is they're going to get their supply.
Sorry to interrupt. Why couldn't he trace along the rail line? Is it interdicted by the unit in 1201?
Exactly. 150th Division Zone of Control.
1235.
Got me cut off there. Yeah.
So we're going to draw our attack supply, which is 6T from this hex here. You can do supply 2 ways. You can draw back to the supply, the unit to the supply dump, or you can have the headquarters throw it forward. In this case, it's easier for, well, it just makes more sense for these units to just draw it directly from there. So that's what they're going to do. So it's going to cost me 1.5 SP.
Right, and they could actually grab those SPs and use them even if there wasn't a headquarter there. If they
We've paid our supply. Bill has paid his supply. So what we do now is we go ahead and roll for surprise again. And we have each have ARs of 3. But since there's multiple units attacking, if they had different ARs, I would get to pick which AR to use. The same if Bill had multiple units in that hex defending, he would be able to pick whatever AR he wanted to use for the battle. And here we're 3 and 3, so we're even, so it's going to be... Go ahead, Bill.
say generally you'll use your highest AR guy, but not always. There might be cases where you don't. The high AR guy will also be the first one that has to die if there's a loss, and there might be a case here and there where you wouldn't want to. Generally, the highest AR is the one you use.
So on our surprise roll here, it's just a straight roll since we're both 3, so I'll go ahead and roll that. And we roll the
Lo and behold, I have one surprise.
Yeah.
Do I roll? Want me to roll the D6?
Yeah, go ahead. So what had happened, I was attacking at 24-8 or 3-1 in close terrain because of the village. So what we do is we look at the chart at 3-1, and Bill rolled a 2 for the surprise, the number of shifts after the surprise. So it shifts 2 columns to the left. So I'm going to be rolling on the 1-1 under close. And again, this is a straight roll since the ARs were even. So 7. So again, I have an AL1, O1, DO1. So in this case, I have to take a loss for sure. That's the AL1 is, you just take it. There's nothing you can do. No options there. So I'll go ahead and have this guy take a loss. Now the other guy, I can take an option by retreating everybody, or I can take another step loss. In this case, I'm going to take another step loss, put it on the other division. What this does is it forces Bill to take his option.
Attacker takes his option as a loss, then the defender has to take his option. If he had retreated, I would not have had to do anything. I could have ignored my option. But in this case, my guy is going to go to the dead pile because he's a step unit. He has no place to retreat because I can't locked hex side, can I?
You can actually retreat there. It's only if you're DG that you lose a step.
Can it? I wasn't sure if I could attack across that blue. It's just a river or something.
You can't because of the rail line. Well, there's a rail line that goes across it. Yeah, so you're good there. Since he retreated, I can go ahead and advance into that hex, and I will go ahead and do that with both you.
You took the hex, but it was pretty bloody, costing you 2 steps. Lucky I survived.
Okay, so I'm clear on that. You could supply was blocked because of the zone of control, the 150th, but your line of retreat, there was no zone of control blocking a line of retreat.
Yeah, they don't block.
Zone of control won't block. Yeah, it won't block the line of retreat. The only effect it has is if your unit is disorganized and you retreat into a zone of control, then you have to lose a step. But since he wasn't disorganized, he's free to retreat through there.
It's interesting having to always think in terms of supply. I mean, it makes perfect sense with the game, but it's kind of different.
Yeah, it's a little different. That's
It's
for
a lot
sure.
of fun, though. It's a lot of the appeal of the system. At least for
Yeah,
me,
and once
that's a large draw of it.
You know, it takes a little while to get familiar with this, but once you've familiarized yourself with it, it becomes pretty intuitive, like any other game that you learn. And so many nuances to it. There's just a lot you can do, and it's very interesting. It really shows why you can't attack with every single unit every turn like you could.
So for the next step, I'm going to attack the 9th Regiment of the 2nd Infantry Division here. I have the green marker on them, that hex 2105, and I'm going to attack with both of my divisions here, the 118th and the 119th. The 119th has already taken 1 step loss, so I'm only going to have to pay for 5 steps in this case. That one, and reducing this one.
All the way back to Pyongyang with the headquarters, and then mouse over that 25th infantry marker. Look,
What's that, Bill?
mouse over that 25th infantry marker that's right next to the hex you're attacking. Look at that counter.
Oh yeah, it's weird looking.
That one.
But he drew it by hand. Okay, so you went ahead and paid, so we're good there?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm attacking here. I have, since this 119th has lost a step, he's going to attack at proportional strength. So his attack strength in this case is an 8. So with his 8 and the 12 from the 118th, we're attacking 20 to 10, 2 to 1. And we're in close terrain because of the low hills in that hex. So again, we're going to roll for surprise. This time I have an AR advantage, 4 to 3. I'm going to pick the unit that that has not lost a step yet to be the one who's leading with the AR. So surprise roll again. Turns out to be a surprise for the UN.
Surprise,
So Bill roll a single
surprise.
die. So again, I was 2 to 1 in close, and I'm going to go all the way down to 1 to 2 in close. I'm going to roll the die, and I still get to add 1 for the AR difference. And there we have an AL101, so there's nothing bad happening to the defenders in this case at all. So I'm going to have the guy who led, he takes the first step loss, and since I don't want to retreat everybody, take a second step loss.
Well, I'll tell you, this Vassal die roller is just kicking ass tonight, isn't it?
Usually does. So I'm going to have one more attack along this line just to get things moving here. My last attack is going to be the 113th Division here, attacking this breakdown regiment. Again, that's going to cost me 3T because that's the size of the unit in steps. We're just going to draw that from here. And Bill will go ahead and pay for his defense.
Out of the Korean headquarters over here.
Are we all good?
Yeah.
So the attack here is 12 to 3. It's going to be 4 to 1 in close. We're going to roll for surprise first. In this case, I have a 4 to his 2, so we get to add 2 to the surprise roll. So 6 and 8 is nothing. So this is going to be a straight 4 to 1 in close, plus 2 for the AR. In this case, I roll a 9. So here I have an AO1 DL101, which means I have to have an option I can take if I want. I can retreat or take a step loss. In this case, since I want to keep going forward, I'm just going to take the step loss. And Bill's unit on the DL101 is destroyed. My guy will advance up. We're just going to run a single attack up here by the Chosen Reservoir on the 7th Infantry. We're just going to burn through supply here. We're going to go all 6 steps of these 2 divisions, 79th and the 81st. 1.5 SP. And Bill will pay for his defense.
Getting out of the 1 SP that I had in A3410 underneath the Marine.
Alright, so go ahead and attack here again. We're going to roll for surprise first. But I'm going to have my 3 AR unit, the 79th Division, provide his, so we're even. So the surprise roll here is a 9, which is not enough to do anything. So I'm attacking here 24 to 9, which is 3 to 1. And
that's another thing. If you guys aren't familiar with the rounding in OCS on the combat results.
Yeah, 2.5 and up is a 3. So it's just like normal rounding. There's no rounding rounding in the defender's favor in the system. So you got a 3 to 1 in the mountains, and in the mountains again, if we look at the terrain chart, the mountains are very close. So we're going to go use a different line on the combat table this time. So 3 to 1, very close. This is going to be an even roll, and a roll to 6. So it's an AL101 DO1. So I'm going to have both of my guys take a loss. We'll force Bill to take his option.
I have to take my option, and my options are pretty simple. I either retreat or I die, so I'm gonna retreat.
Alright. And since my guys didn't retreat and he left, I can go ahead and advance in. Okay, that's going to do it for the combat phase. I'm not going to make any other attacks right now. Go ahead. So after the combat phase comes the exploitation phase. And the exploitation phase is for the active players, anybody who's got marked as reserve or anybody who happened to gain exploit during combat. One of the results you can gain during combat is the ability to go again during the exploit phase. I have just a single unit right here that I have marked in reserve. So I'm going to release him from reserve. And I'm going to move him his full movement. It's the river, so...
I'm going to interrupt for just a second. When did you when do you select units for reserves? Start of the first phase?
You do that at the beginning of your movement phase. Well, not at the beginning of the movement phase. Before the unit moves, you can mark him with a reserve marker. So during the movement phase, what I did is I marked him there. Now you can move other units first and then mark them, but...
Oh, it's all right, mode.
Sorry, Bill. Go right ahead with what you were going to say.
I'm just saying that the movement phase is the you set the mode the unit's going to be in, whether he wants to flip to his mobile side or stay on the combat side, or if he was going to be able to go in reserve or strap mode or something.
The other thing to remember is you have a limited number of reserve counters per side. It's scenario dependent. Sometimes you don't get but 1 or 2 to use.
Yeah.
Then are the ones that you have stacked up there along the Chinese border, are they just on the map for grins?
That's my limit.
Ease of... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the limit. Those are the ones I'm using.
Yeah, my excess ones are out in the ocean to the right.
Okay, so after the exploitation phase, which is split into movement, barrage, and combat, comes the last phase, which is just the cleanup. And here's where, if it was my turn and I had units marked disorganized, I'd be able to remove the disorganized counter. If I had fueled units, I'd remove the fuel status, things like that. this point I don't have anything to do for cleanup, so that ends the player turn. What we do now
This is
is
where
we
it
go
can
into
get
the next
real
turn.
interesting, right?
Yeah, it can. And what we're going to do here is we move on to the 29th of November. And the very first thing we do is we determine the weather. So if you look at the Korea charts,
Yeah, actually, if you go to the views up on the control panel, and
yeah, it's actually in the upper left of the map too. So if you look at the very upper left, you'll see a weather table there on the side. And in this game, all we're really roll for is to see if we're allowed to have any flight during the turn. So I'll go ahead and roll a single die. A 1, which is no flight.
not good for the
purposes of
UN.
the demonstration, though. Well, I think for purposes of the demonstration, we'll go ahead and call it flight.
Oh, okay. Just so they can get a...
We can see how it works. Yeah. Okay, the next part of the turn before we start the actual player turns is we determine who goes first. So we each roll 2d6 for initiative, so I'll go ahead and roll first. Now, according
So
to
now
the rules,
I rolled the highest, so I could say that Jim moves first, or I could say that I move first. I can call it either way. Obviously, in this situation, I need to get the heck out of some of these places, so I'm really lucky that I'm got to move again right now with these holes in my line. He could be cutting me up pretty good.